This week, the global energy order was upended. A seismic shift occurred, one that could redefine international relations and reshape the energy landscape for decades to come. The established norms of energy trade are being challenged, and the implications are far-reaching. Canada and Qatar, two of America's closest energy partners, nations that have historically maintained strong alliances with the United States in the crucial sector of energy supply, announced moves to reduce their reliance on U.S. markets. This marks a significant departure from established patterns and raises serious questions about the future of American energy security. Canada, America's top crude supplier, the reliable source that has fueled American industries and transportation for years, will fast-track pipelines to its own coasts, investing heavily in infrastructure to diversify its export options, seeking new buyers beyond the U.S. They are actively engaging with international markets, exploring opportunities to forge new partnerships and secure long-term energy agreements. Qatar, a giant in liquefied natural gas, a global leader in the production and export of this increasingly vital energy source, signed a massive long-term deal with Europe, solidifying its position as a key energy provider for the continent for decades to come, sidelining American buyers. This strategic move leaves U.S. companies scrambling to secure alternative sources and raises concerns about future energy costs. These weren't isolated decisions. They were a coordinated response, a calculated strategy designed to reshape the global energy landscape and assert greater control over their own resources, to years of unpredictable U.S. trade policies and tariffs. The constant fluctuations and uncertainties in American trade relations have pushed these nations to seek more stable and reliable partnerships elsewhere. The result: energy stocks plunged, sending shockwaves through the financial markets and triggering anxieties among investors. And Americans suddenly felt the impact, experiencing the tangible consequences of these global energy shifts in their daily lives, at the gas pump, and in their jobs. The ripple effects of these decisions are being felt across various sectors, leading to job losses and economic uncertainty. Canada and Qatar's actions signal a new era, one where the U.S. is just another customer, no longer holding the dominant position it once did in the global energy market, not the center of the energy world. The balance of power is shifting, and a new, more multipolar energy landscape is emerging. The White House is in crisis, facing the consequences of its own policies. The administration is now under immense pressure to address the situation and formulate a new energy strategy that can restore stability and secure America's energy future. At the heart of this crisis is President Trump's America First policy, built on aggressive tariffs. Tariffs on steel and aluminum, justified as national security measures, alienated allies like Canada and triggered retaliatory duties. The administration's unpredictable approach created deep mistrust, making long-term partnerships with the U.S. risky. For energy producers, the fear was clear. If tariffs could hit steel overnight, oil and gas could be next. Canada and Qatar decided the risk was too high, seeking more stable markets and ending decades of automatic trust. Canada is the backbone of U.S. energy security, supplying more crude oil than all OPEC nations combined. American refineries are built for Canadian oil. Switching would be costly and slow. For years, this partnership was a model of stability, until now. Qatar, meanwhile, is a top global exporter of liquefied natural gas, shaping prices and supply worldwide. U.S. firms had hoped to be key partners in Qatar's expansion, but the new deal with Europe locks out American traders. These moves don't just shift business, they challenge U.S. energy leadership and signal a global pivot away from American dominance. The world's top energy producers are hedging against U.S. unpredictability. America's central role in global energy is no longer guaranteed. Officially, Canada and Qatar cited market diversification and long-term strategy for their decisions. But the subtext was clear. Both nations are tired of being vulnerable to U.S. political whims and trade threats. Canadian officials, frustrated by surprise tariffs and threats to NAFTA, saw no choice but to build escape routes from U.S. dependence. Qatar, wary of erratic U.S. Middle East policy, chose Europe's stability over American volatility. The real message: trust in the U.S. as a reliable partner is broken. Both countries are acting to protect themselves from future shocks. The world is watching and learning. The Trump administration's response was immediate and combative, with President Trump blasting Canada and Qatar on social media. He dismissed their moves as mistakes and accused them of disloyalty. While officials insisted the U.S. energy sector was unaffected, behind the scenes, panic set in as aides scrambled to assess the real economic fallout. The administration's public stance, deny, deflect, attack, did little to calm markets or allies. Oil traders and investors saw the reality. Secure supply and future opportunities were slipping away. The administration refused to acknowledge the role of its own policies in the crisis. Instead of reassurance, the response deepened doubts about America's reliability. The world took note. The U.S. was losing control of the narrative and the market. The economic shock following the decision was swift and far-reaching. It wasn't a slow burn, it was an immediate jolt that reverberated through various sectors of the American economy, catching many by surprise and leaving them scrambling to adjust. The initial optimism that might have surrounded the decision quickly evaporated as the harsh realities began to set in. Energy and industrial stocks tumbled dramatically, reflecting the deep uncertainty and concern that gripped the market. Investors, spooked by the potential long-term consequences, began to shed their holdings, triggering a downward spiral that affected not just the energy sector, but related industries as well. The ripple effect was palpable. Companies heavily tied to Canadian oil, which had previously been expanding and investing in new projects, were forced to implement immediate hiring freezes. Expansion plans were shelved, and the once optimistic outlook turned bleak as companies braced for a period of austerity and uncertainty. The impact on employment was almost immediate. Refineries specifically built and optimized for processing Canadian crude faced the daunting prospect of costly and time-consuming adjustments. These facilities, which had been designed with a particular type of oil in mind, now had to retool and adapt to handle different grades, adding significant expenses and operational challenges. The alternative to costly upgrades was even more dire, risking significant layoffs as production slowed or even halted. Workers who had dedicated years to the industry suddenly found themselves facing an uncertain future, adding to the growing sense of economic anxiety. The human cost of the decision became increasingly apparent. Almost overnight, gasoline prices jumped as oil futures rose sharply, reflecting the immediate supply shock and the increased cost of alternative sources. Consumers felt the pinch at the pump, as filling up their vehicles became noticeably more expensive. This directly impacted American consumers, squeezing household budgets and forcing difficult choices about spending priorities. The rising cost of fuel had a cascading effect, impacting everything from transportation to the price of goods and services. The long-held promise of American energy dominance, a goal that had been pursued for years with significant investment and policy changes, began to fade into the distance. The vision of the U.S. as a self-sufficient energy powerhouse seemed increasingly unattainable. The U.S. not only lost significant market share in the global energy arena, but also suffered a blow to its business credibility. International partners began to question the reliability and predictability of American energy policy, potentially impacting future collaborations and investments. Qatar seized the opportunity to strengthen its position in the European market, while Canada actively sought out new buyers in Asia, diverting resources and infrastructure away from the U.S. market. This shift undermined years of substantial U.S. investment in critical energy infrastructure projects, leaving pipelines underutilized and future projects in doubt. Once new pipelines and long-term contracts with other nations are firmly in place, established trade patterns could fundamentally shift for decades to come, potentially reshaping the global energy landscape. The U.S. faces the very real risk of being sidelined and becoming increasingly isolated in a global energy market that it once dominated through innovation, investment, and strategic partnerships. The fallout extends far beyond mere economic statistics. It represents a significant blow to American influence on the world stage and a weakening of its long-term economic security. The true cost of protectionist policies is now becoming painfully clear, impacting the lives and livelihoods of millions of American families and consumers across the nation. The world's energy map is rapidly being redrawn, with new alliances and trade routes emerging, and the United States finds itself increasingly on the periphery, no longer holding its position at the very center of global energy leadership. Economic experts and financial analysts are closely scrutinizing the current global situation. They're drawing parallels to historical economic downturns, attempting to understand the potential long-term consequences of recent policy decisions. Experts compare this crisis to the disastrous Smoot-Hawley tariffs of the 1930s, a period marked by severe economic hardship and global instability. The Smoot-Hawley Act, with its protectionist measures, is often cited as a key factor that exacerbated the Great Depression. These tariffs triggered global retaliation and deepened the Great Depression, leading to widespread unemployment, business failures, and a significant decline in international trade. The lessons learned from that era are crucial in navigating today's complex economic landscape. Today's trade war risks similar self-inflicted wounds, potentially disrupting global supply chains and hindering economic growth. The imposition of tariffs and other trade barriers can lead to retaliatory measures, creating a cycle of escalating tensions, with analysts warning of long-term damage to U.S. growth and energy security. The uncertainty surrounding trade policies can discourage investment and innovation, ultimately impacting the overall health of the economy. America's specialized refineries can't easily adapt to sudden shifts in supply, particularly when it comes to processing different types of crude oil. This inflexibility can create bottlenecks and price volatility in the energy market, and the loss of Canadian and Qatari supply will be hard to replace, potentially leading to higher energy prices for consumers and businesses. Diversifying energy sources and fostering stronger relationships with reliable suppliers are essential for ensuring energy security. Geopolitically, these economic decisions have far-reaching implications, affecting alliances and international relations. The moves by Canada and Qatar are a vote of no confidence in U.S. leadership. These decisions reflect a growing concern among key allies about the reliability and predictability of U.S. foreign policy. Other nations may now seek alternatives, exploring new partnerships and trade agreements that better align with their interests. Building new alliances that exclude Washington, potentially reshaping the global political landscape. The erosion of trust with close allies can have significant consequences, undermining international cooperation on critical issues. Sends a chilling message worldwide, signaling a shift in global power dynamics. Rebuilding lost partnerships will take years of steady diplomacy, requiring a commitment to open communication and mutual respect. The lesson in a connected world, where economies are intertwined and global challenges require collective action, strength comes from reliable alliances, not going it alone. Collaboration and cooperation are essential for navigating the complexities of the 21st century.